It's time for the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Powerful and liberating business strategies you can start in 5 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, Dean Soto.
Hey, what is up? It is Dean Soto with freedomin5minutes.com. And we're here again with another Freedom in 5 Minutes episode. Today's topic is this: you can systemize virtually anything if you have the right person doing it. That and more coming up. Okay, so I am here yet again, and I get to have the distinct pleasure, the honor, the privilege of talking with one of my close friends, Mr. Oliver Kelso, who has been on this podcast once before. He was actually here, but I want this podcast to be specifically about some of the cool stuff that he's been doing, because last time we were talking about my beautiful nature at my house. So Oliver Kelso with Grow Smart, and I would love to have you introduce yourself, my friend.
Hey everybody. Hey man, nice to be here again.
Oh man, that was it is nice to have you yet again over here. You're going to hear some of my kids screaming in the background. You know every single one of them since you were here not too long ago, so you're used to it. But yeah, so last time we were here, we were talking about, we were just chatting about the nature and talking about a couple other things while you were here. But I really wanted to get you on this podcast again, predominantly because you have a really, really cool business, and one where we've worked together quite a bit. We still do in some ways. We have connections and so on. But you've been doing some really cool stuff in the financial services industry and other industries like real estate and so on. So I wanted people to just get to know, what is Grow Smart, and what are the results that you get for the people that you work with?
Absolutely. So Grow Smart is it's designed to be an outsourced operations company, really, operations consulting company. So we come in and we help people solve operational problems, and the cornerstone of that, of course, is the driving force behind Freedom in 5 Minutes. It's the VA service that you've built from the ground up. That really is the cornerstone of the whole idea. And the reason that's the cornerstone is because that is probably the single most effective scaling tool I've ever seen at a company, like hands down. You can have, like, software is great. There's a lot you can do with software. That's true. That's fine. But integrating a thinking human that's affordable, that's often better and more detail oriented than the actual employees of the company, is unbelievable. So that's why I do what I do, because I love helping companies build and grow. And the only way I know how to do that now really effectively is with, a combination of good software integration, or good software combined and integrated with virtual assistants.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. You're one of the first people who really adopted the whole virtual systems architect type people, these special VAs that will help you to create these systems. I mean, I still remember being in your house while you were creating those videos and just seeing a massive result right away. You're like, okay, I got this, I'm doing this. And then just seeing all the systems documentation and stuff being made, it was awesome. So like, how did you, because even when we met, you had a very systems and technology driven, and systems in the sense of business systems like processes and so on, driven mindset. How did you connect what you were doing at the time to what you're doing now with Grow Smart? Like, how did you even grow?
So at the time, actually, systems weren't new. Like you said, I loved systems. I like efficiency. I like things to work right. You can ask my wife. But I didn't even know about I knew about virtual assistants. I tried to actually hire one, and it was a disaster. It's actually exactly what you told me I could expect when I tried to do it on my own. And so the shift in mindset really was the idea that I don't have to be the sole firefighter, the sole, producer, the one that holds it all together, right? Because anybody that's done operations knows that you integrate the software, you build these things, you're the administrator on everything. And then anything goes wrong, it's up to you to fix it.
Yep.
Anything needs to be developed, it's up to you to build it. Everything in the process is up to you.
Yep.
And then what ended up happening for me is I was the one that had to run the process the whole time. And that's where it failed. And so the shift for me was integrating that very first VA when we sat in my living room, which you mentioned, opened my eyes to the freedom, literally freedom. It actually felt like freedom. So that's why your name is great. The freedom I felt when the first time I told my VA, like, hey, go, here's a list of tasks you're going to do every day prior to, client meetings. You're going to do these 15 things. You're going to set this up, that up. You're handling appointment bookings, all this other stuff. The freedom I felt the moment that was implemented was unbelievable. So in the Grow Smart model, what I'm doing is, for example, the financial services company right now, we're actually scaling up a new financial services company. It's a disruptor in the marketplace. Super cool what they're doing. I won't get into it in detail now, but the foundation of how the company operates is the virtual assistant model. I love your term virtual assistant architect, because that's really what you become as the operations manager or COO or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And in that model, the VAs are now running increasingly complex tasks. So it started with simple things. Intake forms come in, they can process them, they can move people to the right place, setting up server folders, adding them to software, et cetera. I mean, to the point that now they're actually reading through client statements, figuring out where money should be allocated and why, based off of, rule sets that we've developed. So it is like hiring a blank slate. You can teach them to do literally anything because they are all super smart. They have their own strengths. Like, some are really good at data processing. Some are really good at talking to people, just like any other person. But they are way more of a blank slate than any current employees that I work with at any company.
That's cool. That's one thing. That's one thing about you, is that you got that right away with systems in general, is you having that blank slate, which is a lot of people want. Oh, I need someone with this skill set, or I need someone with that skill set. I need to and you just right away jumped into, I'm just gonna show them how to do something, get it documented, and go. And do you still have that kind of mentality? You figure out the system, because you have to actually architect the system. Do you right now just think of architecting the system, show them how it's done, they document it, and then you go and don't even care about the capabilities, like as far as
absolutely. And actually the overriding decision in the process when building out a system now is, okay, how do you have someone else do this whole thing?
I love that.
I mean, literally, because when I look at the employees and what they're doing in the office, the most important thing for them to actually do is the hands-on stuff. It's the run down the hall and deal with an issue, or it's the oversee things from a very, very high level perspective, because they can sit in the office with, a strategist who's very, very experienced, right, in the financial industry, and ask them questions in a way that, somebody sitting thousands of miles away can't do.
Yeah.
And so that's why, that's the role shift actually is something that happens a lot in these businesses. Is the employees all have to shift their roles. They stop being the processors. They stop being the firefighter. They stop being the one that runs everything on a granular level, and they actually have to move into a managerial position in a sense, because they have to work with other people now. They have to tell people, like, you go do this, right? That's not your job. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
I love that. And that's great. So you essentially you're what you do is you go in, you make it to where these people who are who are doing just kind of the day-to-day stuff, you're actually making it to where they can actually become higher value employees, or a higher value, an actual higher value person in the company, kind of making them into an executive or managerial position, because
Correct.
they're no longer having to do that day-to-day type stuff. Like, you figure that out.
Yeah. Perfectly stated. People start doing a job role that fits their salary, which is what you always want. You know, you want the employees that are paid the most producing the most. And if they can't produce because they're filling out paperwork and all these other roadblocks that are important in a company, but, you know, until now there was no real way to get them done efficiently, except, you know, you hire interns out of college, right? That was the previous model. So, and to go back to an earlier point you say, because this is a good one, probably one of the largest mindset shifts or mindset issues I run into when even talking about this subject with people is, like you identified. It's the idea that, number one, no one else can do what I'm doing. And the lack of I'm going to call it blank slate thinking. Nobody is trained on, like, what do you do when an employee comes in that is just pretty good at everything, and but they don't know anything, right? They can do anything, but they don't know anything. And an example is, I was working with a mortgage broker, and this guy, I'm going to mortgage broker, but he really runs a mortgage processing company. He said his number one holdup was processing mortgage processing, right? Hiring a good processor. And the problem he was running into is he had a couple. He wants to scale up, but in scaling up, mortgage processors are very expensive to put on payroll, especially out here in Hawaii, right? We have it's very pro-employee friendly, or pro-employee. So his problem is he didn't have enough business to hire another full-time person. You can't hire a part-time person because there aren't any. So as I'm talking with him, I'm mentioning what the VAs can do, and he goes, well, I don't want to have to train a VA to do mortgage processing. It's way too detailed. And I thought, okay. So after asking him a few more questions, I said, well, why can't your mortgage processors have the VA and teach them to do whatever they needed to do so it frees up their time? And he went, oh, that's a great idea. And it was in that moment, I realized, wow, it is a shift in thinking that not everybody has, or we're not taught that, right?
Correct.
So that's my other example.
You know, like in school, you're taught, you do your homework, you do everything. It's always you. Like, whereas as an entrepreneur, it's if you, in the business world, you want other people to do your work. So imagine paying people to write your essays. That's a big no-no in college, you know. Not saying that I've never done that, but in the business world, that's exactly what you do, right? And so it definitely is a change, like a big change in thinking. And it's cool how you're like, well, if you don't want to do it, have your mortgage processors just show how to do it, and then they can actually create the system for it. You know, like that's great.
Exactly.
So one thing I want to ask you this is that give me an example of just something that you're super proud of that you went into a company, you saw what they were doing, you architected a system, and you saw some pretty amazing results. Like what were the results with what you actually brought to the company?
So sorry.
Look.
Oh, I'm sorry. You gotta give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. This is I think he's got a. Was that a telemark? Or was that a door-to-door salesman?
No, that was actually my mom. She needed something.
Oh, okay. Mama comes first. She's awesome.
Yeah, Mama comes first. That's right.
All right, so I'm going to repeat the questions just in case. So basically, something.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Where you went into a company, and you saw what they were doing, and you're like, dude, there's a way better way of doing this. And you even if it was just one thing that you did for them that completely changed the game for them, what were the results?
Boy, I mean, there's a couple. That's why I'm pausing here.
Yeah, no
So
worries. do all of them. Whatever is coming to mind. We have more than enough time.
Sorry about that. My phone cut out, I think. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, I apologize. So I would say the number one that I'm extremely proud of is probably the current company I'm working with. And the reason is this is a company that previously, I said it was a new financial industries company. It's not actually. They've been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
This is the first time they're actually learning how to scale.
Oh, well, yeah.
So last year they saw a total, I believe, of 62 customers, new customers. That's it. Boutique firm, right? Every client talks to a person for many hours to get what they need. Very small business model.
Yeah.
They wanted to scale up. We actually, like I said before, but we actually take someone through 75% of the intake process. This is complicated. This is like collecting account statements, verifying self-reported data against actual statement data, and then figuring out based on tax law and all these other things, tax rules, how to manipulate their situation to give them, immediate success.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually have a system where a virtual assistant can literally take them through 75% of that process.
Oh, I love that.
So year to date, we're 6 months in, call it, right? June. And we now have taken in 215 clients this year.
But you can't do that, Oliver. How do they, you can't have someone who is, overseas, think of all those complexities, right? They're not going to be able to do what you do or do what the financial strategists do. How are they doing 75%? I always get this, man, with financial services companies.
Exactly. And it's a great question because it seems too complex on the surface. But I approached it this way when I was working with the strategists on this exact problem is, look, you learned how to do it. You could theoretically teach someone else how to do it. So there's some thinking process that happens when you evaluate a situation.
Yep.
What is that? So we started modeling it out on a board. Like, what's the first thing you look at? Oh, I look at their tax return. Okay, great. What do you look at? Well, I look at line 13. Okay. Rule number 1.
Look at line 13.
Open up the tax return, look at line 13.
I love this.
And what's cool is you start small. That was the other thing, is you start small. Mm-hmm. So don't start thinking, I'm going to train the VA to do 100% of my process overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on the complexity of the process. In this case, it's very complex.
Yeah.
Instead, it was have the assistant pull out all of the important information from the statements, verify it against the statement, and then give it to the strategist so that they don't have to go looking for information.
Yeah.
That immediately frees up half an hour of their time per client.
Yep. Yep.
Right? You can build on that, right? That was your favorite saying, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
You can build on, if you do something, you can build on it. So just having a VA that does, step 1, step 2 of a process, well, then as things smooth out and start running smoothly, then you can have them do step 3. Yeah. Then you add step 4.
See, that is freaking amazing. In less than 6 months, you've pushed 200 clients through this. And this is something that, I mean, you have the low cost, obviously, of the virtual systems architect there. You had the change in mindset of the organization there. And what was once you started doing this, did the organization there start to see, oh, holy crap, this is actually, like, we trust Oliver to just, like, what was kind of the deciding factor for them to see that, look, Oliver knows how to make these systems. We're just gonna let him go wild with that, because that's a pretty dang amazing in the financial services industry to set something like that.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, number one, it took someone with some vision at the top, right? You have to have someone up there going, look, I understand we can't scale the way we are, right? If you don't have that, if there's not a commitment and this is important, that's why I say it, there's not a commitment at the top to say, look, we know what we're doing doesn't work right now. We need change.
Yeah.
Right. It's always you're going to have an uphill battle the whole time.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
However, if when there is that commitment, the next thing is achievable, measurable results.
Yeah.
Right. So to be able to turn around and say, hey, we just the aha moment for them was when we onboarded 6 clients that never had to talk to a strategist.
Ooh.
Meaning the company actually collected fees on 6 people, which previously they would have had to spend 1 to 2 hours on the phone with each one.
Wow.
So we actually turn around and closed fee. The clients still get the same level of service because they're still going to talk to the strategist. However, the fees were closed right away, which means the strategist now is actually being paid for their time. They're no longer having to do sales and strategy at the same time.
See,
right?
That's cool because now they can just focus strictly on strategy when it's necessary. And these are 4 to 5 figure fees, right? Generally.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're talking thousands up to upwards of, $30K.
Oh, see.
Depending on the, anywhere from $1,000 to $30,000 depending on the situation.
Gosh, sorry, because I talk to financial services guys all the time, and I need to get you in contact with some folks that I have because you're so good at the number side of things too. That's where you're just so good at not just the systems, but having everything make sense for them, especially in the financial services realm. And I know you touch outside of financial services, but it's just such an older, traditional, or if that's a word, model. And so the mindset shift is so different. So all that's being said, kind of walk me through, can you just walk me through that process? Normally I'd be starting to kind of wind the podcast down, but this is super, super interesting. And I think it's going to be super valuable for a lot of people. Can you walk me through that process of what you do? It doesn't have to be super detailed, but where a strategist went from 1 to 2 hours of having to sell, and I know for sure that it probably is even more than that, having to go back and forth on the phone and stuff, to 0 and just being able to do strategy after they've been paid. What is the process? What was the process, and what is the process now?
It's a great question. So the original process was, you let's say it's a speaking engagement. You go to a speaking engagement, you talk. People are interested, right? You have them fill out a form while they're sitting there. You get back to the office, and then you got to call them all. Or you schedule meetings while you're there, even better. That's great. The problem is you have no information on the client at that point. There's no intake process. There's nothing to sell, unless you're just selling a flat fee, right? Like it's $500 to get started. It's $1,000 to get started, whatever.
Yeah. And
then you have to go collect their documents, right? Which means someone has to send out a document collection link, or they got to fax them in if this is, before 1990 or whatever.
Still happens.
The fax machine nowadays. Oh wait, the financial services industry does. Just kidding. So you bring them in, and that's how the process goes, right? And then you got to talk to them a couple of times first you got to collect the documents, then you have to understand them, then you have to explain to them what you're considering doing, and then you have to sometimes in a 4th or 5th meeting finally close a fee.
Yeah.
To actually implement it. The shift wasn't complicated. The shift was conceptually simple. It was automate and by automate, I don't mean I mean automate with virtual assistants.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't mean build some, complex automated pipeline, but automate the entire process up to the point that the strategist talks to a client and figures out what the real strategy is, which is her whole job role. So you want to eliminate everything up until that point.
Yeah.
So that was question number 1. How do we eliminate all that stuff? And the process is simple. They fill out an intake form, so they self-report their data.
Yep.
Right? Then from that point, the virtual assistant and the automated system processes the information and determines what the client needs to upload to confirm their data.
Yeah.
Sometimes there may be a welcome call in there from like an actual salesperson, but still not a strategist.
Yep.
So you're not taking your highest paid person and putting them on the phone yet before the company's collected any money.
Yeah.
From that, then you move to the document verification. So now they verify all the documents and they create what's called an allocation. So they actually detail out where all the money is for the strategist. Again, it's all the stuff that would have had to happen in-house or the strategist would have to do themselves. Once everything's documented, once the client file is ready, everything's set up, then we use a self-booking link. That was another big addition.
Yeah.
So you don't have 6 million back and forth emails. The client books their own appointment based on the strategist's calendar. And then the strategist has their first meeting. So on any given client, it shouldn't be more than 2 meetings.
Wow.
You have your first meeting to go over the strategy, or your second meeting to confirm it with the client, make adjustments, and close the fee.
Oh, I love it.
And then from that point on, there's more involvement because, then you move to implementation. That's a whole other ballgame, which is also would only work in any scale with VAs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And just as a note here, this isn't, revolutionary in the sense that this is always how a process works, right?
Yeah.
You have in-house employees, they do certain tasks so that your high-level person doesn't have to do them. That's not new. What's new is having someone you're paying whatever, $9.50, $10.50 an hour,
yep,
who's way more capable than a minimum wage, high school employee
yep,
that you'd get here. That's the difference. So I can hire 4 VAs for the same price as one decent employee.
Yeah, decent, and that's the key. Like
decent. That's like decent. That's I have to train them not to take a 2-hour lunch. Decent, right?
Well, it's neat too, like because you also automate the actual strategist as well, because they have to follow the process. True, right? Like they have to know when it's their job, what parts to where kind of what their lane is too. So you have to architect that as well, right?
Right. Exactly. So it's a lot of role readjustment. You have to be very cognizant that it's a shift. People are going to be switching roles. And like we already talked about, there's training required even for your employees to say, look, stop being a savior.
Yeah.
You're not the firefighter anymore. You don't have to do all of these little things. You get the same freedom that, I'm getting at the top of the company. You're going to get too.
Yeah.
Because ends up happening is the employee is actually on the front line.
Yeah.
It's not you. Unless we're talking about like a 1 or 2 man shop, which is then everything's you anyway. But if you already have employees, integrating VAs, actually, it's the employees integrating the VAs, unless you're talking about like an admin assistant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of it's actually working with your staff to improve them. It's like corporate. It's continuing education for your staff.
So cool. Oh, I love this.
It's very cool. It's really amazing. I can't. Anyway, I could go on forever. I know we got limited time here, but it is literally life changing.
Yeah, it's cool because you have a great mix, especially in that niche, of the systems, of the outsourcing, as well as the numbers. Like you understand the financial services realm, especially from the customer side of things, but also from the advisor or securities advisor, whatever it might be, the strategist and so on. You understand their pains, their desires, and then also you understand how they can best help their customers. And so you have a really good mix of all of that. And I've just seen tremendous results from companies that you've worked with. So that being said, how do people find out more about you, and how do people actually start working with you?
So thank you for the plug. To work with me, they go to, you can just go to growsmart.co. That's my website. I will tell you, I exclusively work with Freedom and 5-minute VAs. I will not use another VA.
Woo.
That is on purpose. That's not it's because they work. So I don't care if you can hire a VA for $2 an hour from Croatia that doesn't speak English. That's not going to get you where you want to go. So I'm very clear about that. I'm a boutique firm in the sense that I'm very careful about who I choose to work with.
Yep.
You have to have the right mindset, right? Yep. You know that. I mean, you know that better than anybody.
Oh,
I'm not going to sit and and work with a company who doesn't understand the intense need for systems I'll just be direct, and who it doesn't have their ego wrapped up in them doing everything.
Yeah.
That's key.
That's cool.
A real business owner, a real person that wants their business to thrive and is preferably doing good in the world.
I love it, man.
Those are my requirements.
I love it. No, it's great because like I said, I've just seen such tremendous results from what you bring to these companies. The ones that are hungry for scaling, the ones that actually aren't fighting you, where they have that, the ones that have the Superman mentality where they're, like you said, they're trying to save. You go in, the ones that really truly want to scale, they know that there's going to be some shifting, some pain, and so on and so forth. You make it so easy for them to do by doing those small little things that provide that positive feedback loop that I just recommend anybody who, especially in the financial services business, but it doesn't have to be in that. You work with real estate, property management, real estate investments, property management, and so on.
Doctors, lawyers. It really doesn't matter the industry. That's the best thing about this. Yeah. The VA architect, the VA mentality and architecting your business. That's not a word I know. To perform the way you want to, and like when you once said to me, getting back to why you started your business in the first place. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
That's universal.
Yeah, I love it, and you are able to bring that back to them, and I've just seen it over and over and over and over again. It's so cool. So
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. So yeah, if you want to go and check work with Oliver, I'm sure. Do you give like discovery calls, like if or?
Of course, yeah. We always talk first, see what you're interested in, see where you're struggling in your business, etc. Do a free assessment, whatever you want to call that.
Love it.
And then go from there.
Oh, I love it. So yeah, go check out growsmart.co. Hit up Oliver. He is a genius, and he will help you. If you have a business, if you've been dying to scale, he'll help you scale very quickly, very, very quickly. He's super, super smart. And he's one of he really is the only other systems and operations guy that I ever recommend to people. I'm very boutique when it comes to that as well. I
love it. Dean is amazing. If you're already listening to this, you know he's amazing, but Dean is amazing. I had to turn around and plug you right back because my life would be considerably less amazing without Dean. So kudos to you, man.
Oh, I love it, man.
Freedom in 5 minutes works. It is one of the best shifts you'll ever make.
Oh, I love hearing it. I love it. All right, cool. So go check out Oliver, growsmart.co. Go talk to him. He will change your life. And if you are looking for a virtual systems architect, if you want to scale your business, the easy way, you can go to freedomin5minutes.com. If you need help, go to growsmart.co. Oliver will help you, and you'll end up working with me anyway because he's amazing and he knows where to get the goods. So, but other than that, thank you so much for listening to the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. My name is Dean Soto, and we will catch you on the next Freedom in 5 Minutes episode.
Thanks for listening to the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Now, head over to www.freedomin5minutes.com and register for our free masterclass and discover how to start systemizing and automating your entire business 5 minutes at a time. We'll see you next time on the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast.